So now let's look at two more examples of solving these rational equations using least common denominator. And these two are going to be a little bit more complicated. So my first step is to figure out my least common denominator. I see I am not completely factored here though. I have this x squared minus 1 that can be factored out in my denominator. So my first step is to go ahead and factor that. So I have 4x plus 1 over x plus 1 is equal to 12 over x squared minus 1 factors to be x plus 1 times x minus 1 plus 3. And so looking across, my two factors are x plus 1 and x minus 1 in the denominator, so that means that my least common denominator is x plus 1 times x minus 1. And so that means I'm going to multiply both sides by my least common denominator. So I'm going to multiply the left-hand side by x plus 1, x minus 1, and the left-hand side. So when I multiply this by that on the left-hand side, I see my x plus 1's cancel. So I am left with x minus 1 times 4x plus 1. And then on the right-hand side, I see with my 12 over x plus 1, x minus 1, that's going to cancel with my least common denominator. So I'm left with just 12. Let's change that to purple. And then I'd multiply it by the 3, and so I just have 3 times x plus 1, x minus 1. And now I need to go ahead and solve this equation. So multiplying on the left-hand side, I have x times 4x to get 4x squared, x times 1 to get x, negative 1 times 4x to get negative 4x, negative 1 times 1 to get negative 1 is equal to 12 plus, here I'm going to go ahead and simplify those parentheses. I know that it equals x squared minus 1, so it's going to be 3 times x squared minus 1. Simplifying on the left-hand side, I have 4x squared minus 3x minus 1 is equal to 12 plus 3x squared minus 3. So I do have a quadratic function here, so that means I need to get everything to one side. I'm going to first simplify this right-hand side a little bit further since I still have some like terms. I can add the 12 and negative 3 to get 3x squared plus 9. Now I'm going to move all of my terms. So I'm going to subtract 3x squared to the other side, subtract 9, and I get x squared minus 3x minus 10 is equal to 0. And now I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 10 and add to negative 3. And I see that's going to be negative 5 and 2. And when I set both of those equal to 0, my two answers end up being x is equal to 5 and negative 2. And if I were to substitute both of those in, I see they both come out true. Neither of my denominators equals 0, and so that means we're good. Okay, let's look at one last one. So here I have 6 over x minus 3 is equal to 8x squared over x squared minus 9 minus 4x over x plus 3. So first step, I need to factor that x squared minus 9. So I have 6 over x minus 3 is equal to 8x squared over x plus 3. X minus 3. Let's have a difference of squares there. And now I need to multiply by my least common denominator. I see my only factors are x plus 3 and x minus 3, and so that means my least common denominator is x plus 3 times x minus 3. So I'm going to multiply both sides by that least common denominator. So when I multiply the left-hand side, I see that my x minus 3 cancels. So I'm left with just 6 times x plus 3. when I multiply this with my first term here, I see I'm multiplying by its denominator, so those both cancel, and I'm just left with 8x squared. And then when I multiply it on here, I see my x plus 3 cancels, and I'm left with 4x times x minus 3. Now we have a quadratic equation, so I'm going to do some simplification and then get to a point where we can factor it. So first I'm going to multiply that 6 in, and I get 6x plus 18 is equal to 8x squared minus 4x times x is 4x squared, and 4x times negative 3, I get a positive 12x. And now do a little bit more simplification on the right hand side. I can subtract 8x squared and 4x squared to get 4x squared plus 12x. And then moving all my terms to that right hand side, I can subtract the 6x and 18. To get 0 is equal to 4x squared plus 6x minus 18. And now I need to solve this quadratic equation. I first look for a GCF, and I see that a 2 can go into everything, so I'm going to divide 2 from each term. To get 0 is equal to 2x squared plus 3x minus 9. And then I need to factor that. I'm not going to go into the whole AC process. If you want to review that, you can review that in that factoring lesson. But when you factor this, you should get 2x minus 3, x plus 3. And so you would set each of those equal to 0. And you get that x is equal to 3/2. And when you solve this one, you get -3. However, when I plug these in, 3/2, I don't have any problems. However, when I plug in -3 into this 4x over x plus 3, I get a 0 in the denominator, because 4x over -3 plus 3 gets me 4x over 0, which I can't have. And so that means that my only solution for this one is x is equal to 3/2. This -3 is my extraneous solution.